Commander's Awakened abilities are some of the most powerful upgrades in Marvel Strike Force, but with 53 of them in the game, are they all worth your precious resources? Or are some of them just shiny traps to drain them? Today we're deep diving into every Awakened ability, ranking them from absolute must-haves to ones you can skip safely. And if you want to maximize your roster without wasting a single resource, stick around, you won't want to miss this. Okay, so to do this, we are going to use Tier Maker to make a very simple tier list. You can see here the tiers that we have: absolute must-haves, strong investments, decent but optional, meh, you can skip, and regret material. And I want to give a big shout out to Clay Quartermain, because this was actually an idea that he put forwards. So without further ado, let's get into the tier list. And so the first ability on the list is Ancient One's Serene Devastation. This is her special, and this ability will only affect war. So this is basically what she has in Battle World will affect in war. And this is going to give speed up to the entire team. And because it is giving that speed up, this is, in my opinion, a very strong investment. Next up, we have Ancient One's passive, Master of the Mystic Arts. And this ability is on spawn in war. It's going to give all your astral safeguard. It is also, if you have 3 or more astral allies at the start of any match, enemy characters cannot spawn with taunt. And in war, it is going to prolong the duration of all positive effects by 1 up to a maximum of 3 on self and all astral allies. And because of that, that is also a very strong investment indeed. So next up, we have Apocalypse, and the first ability is the Alpha, which is Apocalypse's basic. This, when you put the Awakened ability on it, is going to attack the targets adjacent to the primary target for 400% damage and that 100% drain, and it's going to apply bleed to the primary and secondary targets. And because of that, I believe that is a very strong investment. This also comes from the Apocalypse chase itself, so is not one you are having to spend any resources on. Next, we have Apocalypse's special, Seismic Sands, and this Awakened ability is going to apply +2 vulnerable, +2 offense down, and +2 defense up to a maximum of 3 to the primary and adjacent targets. And again, that is a very strong investment and well worth your T4s. Next up is his ultimate, The End Is Here. And when you awaken this ability, it is going to make the ability only cost 8 energy. So you're going to be able to do this as your first move. It is going to apply bleed and slow to all enemies, and it is going to fill his speed bar for self by an additional 40% on top of the 60% that you already have on this ability, meaning that he is going to take his turn again. And because of that, that will then put him into his empowered state, which will then give you the big punch. So because of that, that is an absolute must-have for a awakened ability. Next up, we have the first mutant. This is Apocalypse's passive. And the awakened ability on this is on turn, it's going to heal self and all allies for 1% of this character's max health. When this character drops below 50% health for the first time, he is going to gain defense up for 3 turns, making him a lot harder to kill. It is also going to gain an additional 20% max health, giving him an additional 70% max health in total. And all his allies are also going to gain an additional 20% max health and damage. And because of all those effects that are on it, this makes this a absolute must-have where the awakened abilities are concerned. Next up, we have Archangel, and the first ability, Angel of Death. This is his ultimate ability, and this is going to, in arena, on kill, prolong the duration of all positive effects on self, Apocalypse, and all Horseman allies by 1, up to a maximum of 2. And if Apocalypse is an ally or with 2 or more Horseman allies, this attack cannot be blocked. And unfortunately, this is one that I would say is regret material now. If you are doing this, do not awaken this ability, purely because these guys are no longer an arena team. And Fallen Angel as well, which is his passive, which on kill is going to generate 1 ability energy for all Apocalypse and Horseman allies. On this character, Apocalypse or Horseman ally crit, it's going to heal self, Apocalypse, and all Horseman allies for 3% of this character's max health, which obviously, being old stats, isn't going to be a lot. Apocalypse and Horseman allies gain 30% armor and 15% crit chance. Again, this is a regret material. Do not put this awakened ability on. Next up, we have Ares. And the first ability, Sundering Smite, which when you awaken this is going to add an additional 20% damage to the primary and secondary targets and is going to give Ares immunity. And honestly, this one is a meh. You can skip this one. I think we got it quite early on and I had already T4'd all of his abilities, but if I was to have my time again, this would be one that I would skip. Next up is Ares Special. This is Wrath of Mars, and this is going to clear all barrier on all enemies and in war apply trauma to the primary target. And I actually think this is a decent but optional awakened ability. It is not one I would chase right out of the gate. Furious Whirlwind. This is Ares' ultimate, and to upgrade this to level 8 or to awaken it is going to apply ability block for 2 turns and it's going to flip 3 negative effects on Ares. And because it's increasing that ability block, but also flipping those negative effects, I think, again, this is a decent but optional T4. So this would be decent but optional, I think, but could be considered a strong investment because it is available in all game modes. Next up is Ares' passive, God of War, and this is at the start of any match. Enemy characters cannot spawn with Safeguard, and he is going to gain Safeguard for 2 turns. This is an S tier. This makes him a secondary Apocalypse almost, because Apocalypse already has that ability put in. So this makes him a secondary Apocalypse, allowing you to use Apocalypse elsewhere. The fact that this is also in any game mode is quite good. Next up, on to Black Cat. Now, if we had done this a little while ago, back when Secret Defenders were arena meta, this would have been a lot higher. But unfortunately, all of Black Cat's awakened abilities are linked to arena offense. So the first up is her basic, which is Stealth Slice. This is on arena offense. This attack ignores defense up. It's a pretty decent awakened ability all told, but because they are no longer arena meta and it is only arena material, then that would be regret material and would be one that I would not be awakening nowadays. Her ultimate, which is Ill-Gotten Gains, is going to, on arena offense, apply blind to the primary target and 1 random Spider-Verse ally. Again, this is regret material. I would not be doing this now. And 9 Lives, which is her passive ability. On arena offense, enemies cannot spawn with death proof. And on arena offense, lower the damage reduction of all enemies who do not have death proof by 15%. But again, because it is only in arena, that is one that you can completely and utterly skip. Next up, we have Blade. And first off, we have his basic Silver Slash. And the awakened part of this ability is going to add 20% extra crit damage. However, the T4 for this is to add 40% piercing to the primary target and repeat this attack once. So that is a pretty decent awakened ability, and I have got that down as decent but optional. Obviously, extra crit damage is always nice, especially on a damage dealer. Glaive Volley, which is his special, is next up, and this is going to clear all negative effects from self and clear one negative effect from all allies. And this I have as a strong investment. Clearing negative effects is really, really good. Especially clearing all negative effects from himself, as long as he obviously doesn't have trauma. That's amazing, and he is quite a fast character, so you should be able to get this off pretty quick. Next up is Damphir's Fury. This is his ultimate, and this is going to apply blind for 2 turns to the primary and secondary targets. I have had this in the Orcus matchup. This saves you so much, and this is a strong investment for Blade. Finally, for Blade, we have his passive Daywalker, and this is on self or ally crit on the following ally turn, gain assist now, and it is going to add a 10% crit chance for self and all allies. This is an absolute must-have awakened ability. It is what makes Blade go from sort of A tier to God tier where a character is concerned. And now we're going to go into Captain Britain and his basic Avalon Strike, which, if you awaken this, is going to clear all positive effects on the primary target. This is an absolutely super strong investment. I've got this on my own Captain Britain, and what he is able to do at the 4 yellow 4 red that I've got him at is just insane. British Brawl is next. This is his special, and this is when you awaken it, always going to apply stun. That is character control at its finest, and always applying stun is amazing. Its normal one is to just apply stun, but to always apply stun puts this in the absolute must-have of awakened abilities. His ultimate Tea Time Throwdown. This is going to always clear all negative effects on this character, and very similarly to Blade's Glaive Volley, this is a strong investment for Captain Britain. Last but not least, for Captain Britain, we have Champion of the Isles. This is his passive ability, and the awakened part of this is the attack on turn gains 20% drain. This increases Captain Britain's survivability, obviously with that extra drain, and so is an absolute must-have awakened ability for the captain. Going back to the Astral members now, we have Doctor Strange, and the first awakened ability that Doctor Strange has is the Book of Vishanti. This is in war going to generate 3 ability energy for self and apply to counter, to death proof, and to deflect to self and all astral allies. This is a strong investment for Doctor Strange. Having that ability energy go to him in war, plus all the counters, death proofs, and deflects to his allies and himself, is very, very strong, and so would be a very strong investment. Master of the Arcane Arts, which is Doctor Strange's passive. That is in war. The Summoned Wong spawns with 2 death proof, safeguard for 2 turns, and 80% speed bar. In all honesty, this is a meh you can skip. The Wong that Doctor Strange creates is not all that, so that is certainly one that I would skip if I have my time over again. Next up, we have Emma Frost and her Dazzling Domination, and when you awaken this ability in war, it is going to barrier self and all astral and X-Men allies for 20% of this character's max health. Now, obviously, being a new stat meta character, this is quite a lot of barrier, but in all honesty, this is a decent but optional T4 for myself. Her passive, Reformed Queen, Brilliant Teacher. The awakened ability on this: in war, whenever this character, an astral ally or X-Men ally, gains disrupted, it is going to clear all disrupted and apply immunity on that character. That is a massively strong investment. Not being able to be disrupted and then to have immunity applied to you, especially if you could apply that immunity under safeguard, is absolutely crippling and stops you getting controlled. Next up, we go to a slightly older character, Green Goblin Classic. And first off, we have his basic, which is the Goblin Bomb. This is on Crucible offense, is going to gain 10% crit chance for each Spider-Verse character that is present. This is a decent but optional awakened ability, in my honest opinion. Green Goblin Classic, unfortunately, is going to be starting to fall out of the meta ever so slightly, especially as we get more and more of the Cosmic Crucible teams coming through. Next up, we have Goblin Bombardment. This is the ultimate ability for Green Goblin. And when you awaken this on Crucible offense, it is going to gain him +2 charged up to a maximum of 5. Again, this is a decent but optional ability. He works well with this, but it is his ultimate. It is on a 6-turn cooldown. Although you start with it, it is on a 6-turn cooldown. So the number of times you're going to get back round to this to gain more charges again after the initial boost of charges that you get with it is highly unlikely, especially in Crucible. Finally, we have his passive, True Osborne. And this on the Crucible offense is going to apply defense up for 2 turns to self and all superior 6 allies. And while this character has charged, gain a 40% chance to counterattack for self and all sinister 6 allies. And that 40% chance always seems to be a lot more than that, in my honest opinion. And at present, this is still quite a strong investment just because of what it does. Applying the defense up for 2 turns. Whilst he's charged, getting that counterattack chance, you know, all of those things are amazing for him. So that makes that a strong investment. Next up, we have Moondragon and her telepathic burst. And this one, all it does in war is going to apply disrupted for 2 turns to all enemies. I've actually got this one down as a meh, you can skip. If you do it against Astral, if you're doing it in the mirror match, Emma Frost is just going to counter it. And disrupted is good, but if they've got immunity, you can't flip that. It's not flipping the effects tool. Yeah, to me, that is just a meh ability. However, her passive, Psychic Discipline, in war, when an enemy attacks this character or an astral ally, barrier self and all allies for 5% of this character's max health. Now, I have put this down. You might laugh at me with this, but I put Emma's special into the decent but optional. But I think this is a really strong investment. And this is because this is always going off. So it's always hitting the barrier. Whereas Emma's barrier only happens when you use that special, which is generally the ability you're going to lead off with. So this will just give them the barrier on that first turn, whereas this is going to make them last a lot longer. Next up, we have the original and first horseman that we got from Apocalypse, Morgan Le Fay, and everybody wants to do the time warp, which is her special ability. And the upgrade or the awakened part of this is to apply speed up for 2 turns and immunity for 1 turn to an Apocalypse ally and all Horseman allies. Now, I don't think Apocalypse is going to go anywhere in the meta for a while. And because this affects Apocalypse and gives him speed up and immunity, this is a very strong investment still. I wouldn't say it should be high up on your list, but it is definitely a strong investment. And at the end of this tier list, once we've put them all in, I will rearrange them into a complete list of most important to least important in each of the tiers. Next up, we have her passive Fey Queen, and the awakened on this: Apocalypse and all horseman allies gain 50% max health, and Apocalypse and all horseman allies gain 100% resistance. And again, because this is applying to Apocalypse, if ever we want to make something where we want to obviously make Apocalypse just a super tank, or, you know, supercharged Apocalypse, that is still quite a good ability, giving him that extra health. Next up, we have Nova. Firstly, we have his basic, which is Cosmic Beam. And this is on War Offense, going to clear all barrier on the primary and adjacent targets. On War Offense, if this character has applied Nova Force this match, which is his battlefield ability, bonus attack the primary target for 250% damage. And on War Offense, characters killed by this attack cannot be revived. Now this goes into the meta you can skip. It is not quite regret material, and that is because Nowhere still has some uses in Alliance War. Not many, but they do still have some uses in Alliance War. His special Nova Blast is the next awakened ability that you can get for him. And this on War Offense is going to clear all barrier on the primary and adjacent targets. It is going to, if this character has applied Nova Force, it's going to apply bleed to the primary and adjacent targets. And on War Offense, characters killed by this attack cannot be revived. Again, this is a meh. You can skip this, but it is not one that I would regret doing even to this day. And finally, we have the Human Rocket. This is Nova's passive, and this is on War Offense. If this character has charged and 2 or more Nowhere allies, cosmic enemies cannot gain defense up. Again, this is a meh. You can skip, but it's War Offense, and Nowhere are still around in the War Offense meta. Just. Next up, we come to the man who came to the game and punched it in the throat, and then punched it again and punched it again. That's right, it is old Man Logan. And we have his basic Wasteland Strike. This, when you awaken it, is going to, on War Offense, if this character has claws out, apply defense down, and on War Offense, gain 2 regeneration. Now, if you've got him as a striker, this also happens on his ISO 8 ability. And so, to me, this is a decent but optional awakened ability. Next up, we have his special Logan's Fury, and the awakened on this is going to apply revive once to a random Dakan ally. This is a very strong investment for this character. Giving a revive once to a Dakan ally is huge. It is increasing the durability of this already very durable team. Still, the best is the next awakened ability. This is his ultimate, and this is on War Offense, going to generate 1 special ability energy for 2 random mutant allies that were not at full energy on the start of the current turn. Again, a very, very strong investment. So he's already given himself an ability energy, but he's also going to be giving 2 mutant allies. Mutant, that's with anyone. That could be anyone that's mutant. That could be to Omega Red Phoenix Force. That could be to Phoenix herself. That could be to anyone. So really, really strong investment there from that. Next up, we have Omega Red Phoenix Force and his basic Carbonadium Fire. Now, this one, I have been back and forth with myself on this one. And where I finally landed this is into the strong investment. And this is because in Crucible, the damage of this attack reduces the max health of targets by the same amount. And this also happens on his Striker ISO 8 attack as well. I nearly put it in the absolute must-haves because that reducing the max health of targets, I believe if I'm right in reading this, it is 250% piercing damage, which is going to reduce the target's max health by about 1 million. That is nothing to be sort of snuffed at. That's 1 million worth of healing that they can't get back. but it is only tied to Crucible, which is why I've put it in that strong investment category. And we have Death Incarnate. This is his passive. And again, this is a very strong investment. In Crucible, it's going to lower the armor of all enemies with bleed by 100% and lower the resistance of enemies with bleed by 50%. And this is also in Crucible. So again, quite strong, but only tied to Crucible, which obviously makes it not the absolute must-have ability that it could be. Next up, we have Phoenix, and what we have to consider with Phoenix is not only her basic form, but the fact that the awakened abilities also affect the Dark Phoenix form. Now, the ultimate for Phoenix when it is awakened in Crucible, if this character has an Omega Red Phoenix Force ally, apply trauma and ability block to the primary target. So a trauma ability block, that is very, very good. However, when we look at the Dark Phoenix ability, which is Phoenix Unleashed, if this character has an Omega Red Phoenix Force ally or 2 or more X-Men allies, generate 3 ability energy for a random Phoenix Force ally, which at current, with only the 2 of them, is going to generate 3 ability energy for basically Omega Red Phoenix Force, which is going to give him even more, go with his abilities. And so because of that, this is a strong investment. Next up, again, we have a Phoenix passive. And on the base Phoenix in Crucible, if this character has an Omega Red Phoenix Force ally, this character and Omega Red Phoenix Force ally cannot gain stun. That is quite powerful. However, as I said, we do have to check what the Dark Phoenix passive is. And this, when it is awakened in Crucible, if this character has an Omega Red Phoenix Force ally on spawn, so when she comes back from the dead, she's going to clear exhausted from a random Omega Red Phoenix Force ally. Now, there is only one other character. I know this is only in Crucible, but there is only one other character currently in the game that can clear exhausted, and that character is Odin. That puts me at an absolute must-have. Now, I did get asked the other day about, would I buy the, do I think there's value in buying the awakened ability when it was available? And my honest opinion was no, because I do think this is going to come round quite quickly for us all, because it is a reworked awakened ability, a bit like the Doctor Strange and Moondragon ones were. I feel this will come round sooner rather than later, and so wasn't really worth the investment, but it is a very strong ability when it becomes free to play. Next up, we have the Red Hulk and his special Pavement Pummel. And this ability, if Apocalypse is an ally or with 3 or more Horseman allies, clear revive once on adjacent targets. That's huge. He's already clearing it on the primary, but to clear it on the adjacents is great. It is going to fill speed bar for 1 random adjacent Horseman ally by 10%, but it is also going to fill the speed bar for 1 random Apocalypse ally by 15%. And talking about this whole Apocalypse, big, basically pumping Apocalypse up to be as good as he can be to deal with teams. I put this as an absolute must-have awakened ability for Red Hulk. Seeing Red, this is his passive awakened ability, and at the end of this character's turn, if Apocalypse is an ally, it's going to gain +1 charge, up to a maximum of 5. And Apocalypse and all Horseman allies gain 60% focus. And I have put this down as a strong investment. Anything that allows Red Hulk to get his charges up quicker is amazing. And just for having Apocalypse as an ally and gaining that charge is great. Obviously, we know once he gets to the 5 charge, he gets all his ability energy to be able to do his Meteor Crash, which is why this is a very strong investment still where that is concerned. Next up, we have the Southern Belle herself, Rogue, and her Mega Punch, which is her basic. Awakening this ability will mean that if this character has one or more horsemen or apocalypse allies, she's always going to bonus attack. And then she's going to gain 25% crit chance for each horseman or apocalypse ally on the bonus attack. Now, this here I have put down as a meh, you can skip. It is not that great an ability. You get it for free, but you've got to think about the T4s that you've got to put into this. And all the T4 does on this ability is to give plus 50% damage to the primary and secondary targets. So that would be one that I would probably look at skipping as a T4, and therefore you could skip the awakened ability on it. Southern Hospitality, which is her passive, this is going to do the following. Clones of all horsemen and apocalypse allies have reduced max health and speed compared to standard clones, and they cannot reach maximum ability levels. That's a bit of a funny one. Apocalypse and all horseman allies, however, gaining 25% damage. And this one here, I have put in the decent but optional class. 25% damage is great, especially for Apocalypse if we're making that tall Apocalypse build still. But again, older meta, if she comes back around again and she gets her stats reworked, this would go a little bit higher possibly. And our final awakened character is Shadow King. And first off, we have his passive Umbral Strike. And when you awaken this in war, it is going to blind the primary target. This is a decent but optional T4 in my opinion. Well, not T4, but a decent but optional, awakened ability. We look at the T4, this is going to add an additional 30% damage to the primary target, and in Battle World, apply blind to the primary target. And it will also mind control the enemy with the highest damage to attack the primary target. So the T4 on that is pretty decent. So putting that in there would be, like I said, decent but optional. Shadow Ball, which is his special ability in war, is going to spread all negative effects except stun and trauma from the primary target to all adjacent targets. And I have put this as a strong investment. Again, it's just taking the Battle World ability that he already has and adding it to war. But obviously this is making the team dual use. Astral Annihilation, which is his ultimate. The awakened on this is going to, in war, prolong the duration of all negative effects for all enemies. Again, a very strong investment because it is taking this over to the war mode rather than just it being a Battle World game mode ability. And last but not least, we have the First Nightmare. Now this is going to do the following. In war, enemies cannot spawn with immunity, and before this character takes a turn, this character and all astral allies' speed bar cannot be reduced. And in war, on enemy turn, gain plus 5% speed up to a maximum of 25% for self and all astral allies. This is the, again, game changer. This changes the astral team from being good to gods. And because of that, again, this is an absolute must-have ability. Okay, so here we have the final tier list for the awakened abilities sorted into an order of priority that I feel you should get them or put them on. This tier list will be available on the Jetson Squad Discord, which I will leave a link to in the description down below. I'm also going to post this on the community tab on my YouTube channel. And that wraps up our awakened abilities tier list. Did you agree with the rankings, or do you think I underestimated or overhyped any of these abilities? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's keep the discussion going. If you found this helpful, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more Marvel Strike Force guides, tier lists and strategies. And until next time, Commanders, stay positive.